Stability AI, while they've been in actions on and off, I think they released a code interpreter a couple of weeks ago that we have covered. Right, they've now made a good amount of update to the original model that they started working on, which is diffusion, stable diffusion, right? While I just mentioned that Shiva, they probably were a harbinger in the image generation field, but slowly they started losing that sheen, right? But I think stable diffusion, right? The announcement that they made is it's not just one single model; it's a suite of models, right? Which range from 800 million parameters to 8 billion parameters, right? Just to clear for our listeners, it's not a mixture of model right approach. It's each of these are separate standalone models that users can leverage to generate images. But how does that matter, right? Because now, see, one of the biggest challenges that we've seen with higher parameter models is number one, obviously, is cost, but number two is latency as well, right? And that's something that we've seen happen heavily with Dolly as well, right? Dolly 3 specifically, right? Now, if let's say you have a use case where latency is a concern where you need to probably get back to customers much faster, right? You can actually, but accuracy, realistic image generation, etc., is something that can be compromised upon. You can actually use a 800 million parameter model. But then when accuracy needs to be really good, but latency is something that can be compromised, you can actually go for a higher parameter model. Right? So that's the flexibility that they've given. But that's not even the differentiator that they've brought in with stable diffusion, right? Now, generally, what we've seen across these LLMs is that they're either diffusion models, which is what stable diffusion initially was, right, which was leveraged for generating images, or they were transformer type of models, which is what your GPT or llamas of the world are, right? Now, what is the difference between the two? Obviously, is that when a transformer model works, it understands the overall layout of the larger picture, and that's how it starts predicting the next character, right? It doesn't understand the nuances or the details, right? But in case of a diffusion approach, it doesn't understand the larger picture or the layout of the land. It actually understands the details, and that's how stable diffusion originally generated images. It actually generated images at a pixel level, and then probably started going out, and so on and so forth, right? But challenge obviously is that when you have these two types of models, you don't get a consistency, right? Now, what they've done is they've combined the two approaches together, right? Now, which is you have a layout that is generated leveraging the transformer capabilities, and then you start looking into details and generating these, images, keeping in mind the details and nuances, right? Well, obviously, this is a very good approach, Shiva, right? And I'm pretty sure that stable diffusion would be able to, change the whole way that they generate images. But from the launch post, I was able to see one problem that was there, right? Which I'm pretty sure a lot of our listeners would have noticed as well. That when you actually do this type of an approach, since you're actually generating images at a detailed level, and the image that they've actually used in their launch is a bus in probably a New York street, right? It becomes a problem for very realistic images, because in the if you see, the building's shadow is actually on the right side, which means the light is coming on from the left side. But the bus's shadow is actually on the front, which means the light is coming from the back, right? The windows on the buildings are not consistent, and so on and so forth. So while this might work out for run of the mill type of images, but I think realistic images still need to be improved a bit.
I mean, the way you put it across is really very nice. I think viewers, this is probably the best way to understand how transformers work and how diffusion work and how these two come across together. Rishabh has put it in a very nice and easy way to understand. I don't have any comments on this technology, except for the fact that it is a launch thing. We need to see it in production, how the whole thing works out. I would still say it is not a tried and tested technology. It is a good, I would say it's a good experiment, to be honest. How it will work really in production is something we need to wait and see. But it's definitely a good approach to get started. Kudos again to the team for doing this.
Absolutely.